as we move to make this great park a reality.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And it indeed was a pleasure to attend the first community meeting in the Mount Cook School Hall the other night with the Minister. He was paying one of his royal visits to the electorate, so it was good to see him on that. And should he choose to grace us with his... Has he moved into the electorate? He's given up on Rongotai, couldn't beat Annette King, and decided that he'd come into Wellington Central. We welcome him with open arms into Wellington Central to be able to oversee this project. Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party is supporting this bill, and I first at the outset want to thank not only the members of the Transport and Industrial Relations Select Committee, but also the officials who worked alongside the committee. It was a process done at speed, and there was a lot of technical detail that needed to be dealt with, and the officials were able to meet extremely quick turnaround times, and we're very grateful for the work that they did, working across the NZTA, the Ministry of Culture and Heritage and the Parliamentary Council Office, so we're very grateful for the work that they did. Mr. Speaker, the Minister has run through the substantive changes that the committee made, but I do just want to highlight 3 or 4 of them because they are areas that the Labour Party was particularly keen to see included in this bill to give us the confidence that this legislation will meet the purpose that it's been put forward for. And the Minister has made clear that this is a very limited scope for this bill. It is all about the creation of the War Memorial Park by April 2015 to meet the 100th anniversary of the Gallipoli landings. And the committee was anxious to make sure, and it's in the commentary of the bill, to make sure that everybody was aware that those were the limits around this. The fact that this was a nationally significant project and that it had to be completed by 2015, those 2 elements were vital to the conclusion of the committee that this was the only way in which we could ensure this project happened. And I do want to put on the record again from the Labour side of the House, we know that this is not ideal legislation. It would be much better if we were able to go through the normal processes. But the truth is that since 2009, the government has dragged its heels around getting this project going, and we are very pleased that they've finally decided that they will back it. But by only deciding now at the last minute, the only option available to this Parliament to facilitate that is to pass empowering legislation of this sort. It isn't ideal, it should not become the regular practice of this House, but there are going to be situations where it is necessary, and we believe that this is one of those situations. Mr. Speaker, the Minister mentioned the changes the committee made around Orders in Council, and again this is important to make sure that all the checks and balances that need to be in place are in place when we're giving such wide powers under a bill as we are in this one. And so the committee felt that the process around the granting of Orders in Council was not sufficiently robust as it had been proposed, and we made 3 main changes to that. The first of them is what I would call the last resort clause. And this is the clause, new subclause 4 in clause 24, which makes absolutely clear that the use of Orders in Council is a last resort. The processes that the bill set up should allow for all that needs to be done in the construction of this park. But if it doesn't, the Order in Council process is only there to be used in the last resort. And the wording that we've come up with there was to say that when making an order in council, the Minister must have considered all other reasonably practical ways relevant to the particular circumstances to achieve the purpose of this legislation. So that notion of all other reasonably practicable ways is vital to our agreement to having this Order in Council process. It is a last resort. We also included a new clause to require the review panel that's been set up under this legislation to look at Orders in Councils to report to this Parliament every 6 months. And it is important that Parliament stays in touch with this project. We have given significant power to NZTA and to the developers of this project. We need to know what's going on in the project, whether Orders in Council have been granted, and the new clause 27A in the bill allows us to have that ability. We also have recommended amending clause 31 and deleting clause 32. These are around what are called the disallowance provisions. Essentially, this is to make sure that there is time time for members of this House to review the Orders in Council and exercise their rights around whether or not they think those Orders in Council should be able to go ahead. The way that this works normally would have meant a very short turnaround time, so we've extended it out to 12 sitting days after the day on which an Order in Council was presented to the House. So with those three changes, Mr Speaker, the Labor Party has a higher degree of comfort around the exercise of the Orders in Council process, noting as we do that it is a last resort. Mr Speaker, the other area that I just want to mention in terms of the changes made in the committee is around the community forum. And I was pleased to hear the Minister say that he thinks the community forum is going to be an important part of this process, because the wider Wellington community, and in particular the Mount Cook community, are strongly supportive of this park being built. They have long wanted Buckle Street to go underground and allow there to be the kind of place that all New Zealanders would want to be part of, but particularly people who live in this community would like to use and enjoy and have as a place to reflect. But as a community, they obviously also want to be involved in the decision-making process. And the Community Forum will now meet at least 3 times a year, and I'm strongly encouraging the government to see that forum meet more often than that, because it will be an opportunity for the local Mount Cook community to have their say. I should also note, Mr Speaker, that the membership of the Community Forum has also been increased, and it's been increased to include 2 particular groups who I want to mention. The owners of the former Mount Cook Police Barracks, and any members of the House who come into Wellington via the motorway will know the police barracks. They sit on the corner of Tasman Street and Buckle Street. They are a historic building. They have level 1 classification. The owners have tenants in the building, and clearly the park will be being built around them, and it's very important that they have a say. The people on the opposite side of that intersection are those people who live in the Tasman Garden apartments, and we've also included the Tasman Garden Body Corporate in the list of people to be part of that forum. We are asking a lot of people who live in this area, Mr Speaker. There is going to be enormous disruption to their lives. The road is going to be, the diversions on the road, assuming this bill passes, will start very soon. There's already been geotechnical work that's been causing some disruption. And so it's only fair to those people that they have the opportunity to have their say and be part of this process. So I'm pleased that the committee has agreed to extend the membership of the Community Forum. The final matter on the Community Forum that I want to mention is a very important change made by the committee, and this is to somewhat contradict what the Minister said in his speech. The Community Forum does have a real role now under this legislation in the final design of the park. And it is an important part of this process that the committee feels it can have its say. The park has been designed and well designed, but it will not meet every single need as time goes on. And we want to make sure that members of the Mount Cook community and the wider Wellington community do have a say in how the park is designed. So I'm pleased that we've been able to amend Section 36 with the Community Forum to make that happen. Mr Speaker, more generally, to conclude my speech, I want to make the point that this memorial park has been a long time coming. Helen Clark talked about it in 2004, and it's good that we now have some agreement, and I accept the reservations of the Green Party. We have some agreement across the House that it should happen. What it is going to create for New Zealand and New Zealanders is a place where we can reflect on those who have sacrificed themselves for us in war. We can reflect on all those who have served in war. And I'd just note in closing that Mr Finlayson said at the public meeting we were at the other night that he also favoured making sure that we have some recognition of those conscientious objectors in wars past, people like Archibald Baxter. And I welcome that notion from the Minister that actually this will be a park where we can reflect on the war, the nature of war, the cost of it to us, and the sacrifice that people have made. We need to get it developed in time for the 100th anniversary of the Gallipoli celebrations, commemorations. On this side of the House, we recognise that this legislation is the only way now that we will achieve that, having the government having lost the time over the last 3 years, and therefore we will be supporting the bill.
I call the honourable member David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I would just like